Before the light walks among men, the world would face its darkest moment. Empires rose like monsters, prophecies slept in silence, and humanity walked without light. But in an instant, centuries of waiting would tremble. And the promise would awaken. The ancient cities lay under a strange silence, as if time itself were holding its breath before something grand. Narrow stone streets were lit only by flickering torches, and each shadow seemed to hide the weight of centuries without answers. The world moved forward, but it moved forward wounded. Entire peoples sought direction, kings rose and fell, prophets had gone silent, and the heavens seemed too distant to hear. Humanity bore a void that no religion, empire, or sacrifice could fill. It was as if everyone had learned to survive, but no one knew how to hope anymore. In Judea, the weariness was even greater. The people walked with their heads down among Roman soldiers who patrolled the streets with a hard and indifferent gaze. Old people recalled stories of past liberators, but these memories sounded like distant echoes of a better world. Amid the chaos, a boy held his father's hand and asked in a low voice,
"When will God speak again?"
The man took a deep breath, looked at the dark sky and simply replied,
"Nobody knows, my son." But he didn't forget.
There were nights when the priest stayed awake until dawn, trying to decipher ancient promises. Sacred scrolls were opened with reverence, and the words of the prophets seemed to shine under the lamp flames. Even so, there was still the fear that everything had come to an end. Some leaders were murmuring among themselves,
"If the Most High has not spoken for so long, are we still listening?"
Others tried to reassure the people by saying that the promise was still alive. But the truth is that even the most steadfast felt that the spiritual darkness was too profound. Meanwhile, in the taverns and markets, travelers from all regions shared unsettling stories. They said that empires moved like hungry beasts, competing for territories and controlling trade routes. Philosophers discussed the meaning of life in crowded squares, but their words sounded empty. Proud warriors recounted ancient victories, but feared the battles yet to come. Among slaves, hope was a rare luxury. Among soldiers, compassion was seen as weakness. Among rulers, justice seemed like an easy currency to corrupt. In Jerusalem, a group of elders was meeting in secret. The table was lit by a single flame. One of them declared,
We live in the shadow of promises, and yet we walk blind.
Another person replied,
The promise remains, but maybe the time for fulfillment is beyond us.
The oldest among them looked up, her wrinkles marked by decades of waiting.
The prophets said the night would be long, but they also said the light would come. No darkness is eternal.
In the smaller villages, the daily struggle was even more intense. Farmers sweated to feed their families. Craftsmen struggled to sell their work. Mothers tried to protect their children from the brutality of tax collectors. In one of those simple houses, a woman lit a small lamp and whispered to herself,
Lord, if you still see us, give us a sign.
She didn't know, but her cry was similar to that of thousands around the world. And there were also those who had given up, men who surrendered to vices. Soldiers who hid behind violence. Young people who believed that justice was just a myth. The weight of waiting corroded hearts. Faith seemed like too fragile a thread to support so many centuries of silence. However, among these same weary hearts, something unexpected began to emerge. A gentle restlessness, as if the world was about to awaken. Eminent scholars discussed the ancient prophecies and disagreed in their interpretations.
The Messiah will be a warrior.
No, he will come as a glorious king.
But there was always a third who whispered.
Maybe he will come in a way that no one expects.
The idea seemed absurd, but it touched the hearts of those who still believed. Little by little, without anyone noticing, despair began to mix with a strange kind of expectation. No one knew where it came from. Perhaps from the ancient chants sung at parties. Perhaps from the stories told around the campfires. Perhaps from the simple desire for something to finally change. It was as if everyone felt, without understanding, that time was about to turn a page. And so, between empires that were gaining strength and people trying to survive the chaos, a silent premonition began to take shape. Humanity was on the brink of something its eyes could never have imagined. The world remained in darkness, but the darkness would not last forever. On the horizon of history, a light began to move. The empires advanced like stone giants over the earth, shaping destinies and crushing peoples under the weight of endless ambitions. Rome, with its red banners and golden eagles, marched as if nothing could stop it. Their disciplined legions crossed mountains, valleys, and deserts, leaving behind a trail of forced obedience. In Judea, the sound of Roman sandals echoed in the narrow streets, reminding everyone that freedom was just a distant memory. But Rome was not the only power to shape history. Before it, other forces had left deep scars on humanity. Echoes of Babylon could still be heard in the laments of the elders. They spoke of immense walls, hanging gardens, and kings who believed they were gods.
They thought the sky belonged to them.
An elder once said, sitting under the shade of a fig tree. His curious grandson asked,
And did God speak to them?
He spoke, and they did not listen.
Empires fell because they did not understand that thrones made of pride always crack. After Babylon, Persia came, with Cyrus and Darius ruling as lords of the known world. Although more tolerant, they also believed that human power could change the destiny of peoples. But no name evoked as much emotion as Alexander the Great. In the schools of Jerusalem, teachers recounted how he crossed unimaginable lands, conquering cities with the speed of lightning. Some admired him, others feared his memory. His empire brought common culture, philosophy, and language. But it also led to conflicts, revolts, and a deep clash between traditions. At the same time, Hellenization spread pagan temples over ancient sacred hills, and the Jewish people struggled to maintain their identity.
If we lose our faith, we will lose everything.
At night, caravans of merchants crossed deserts carrying stories from distant worlds. They spoke of kingdoms on the borders of India, of rich cities on the banks of Egypt. From busy ports where ships brought spices and rumors, rulers boasted about their victories. But each new territory gained meant new conflicts. The world was saturated with blood and power. In a tavern near Caesarea, two Roman soldiers were talking.
The world is becoming increasingly restless.
Restless always was. The difference is now we are on top.
Their laughter echoed, but it did not overcome the heaviness of the atmosphere. Even among the Romans there were murmurs. Some felt that despite the strength of the empire, something was wrong.
Have you noticed?
The more we achieve, the emptier it feels.
Maybe it's just tiredness.
It's not like we're moving towards a destination we don't understand.
He did not know it, but his words reflected a deep spiritual truth. Not even the greatest of empires could fill the emptiness in the human heart. Meanwhile, among the people, discontent was growing. The taxation was harsh, and many found themselves forced to give away the little they had. In a village near the Jordan, a tired fisherman was talking with his son.
Father, why do they take everything from us?
Because that's how the world is ruled, by men who believe they can control destiny.
The boy then asked,
And God?
He still rules, but sometimes it seems like he's far away.
However, amid the armies, the philosophies, and the thrones, something subtle was happening. The synagogues were multiplying throughout the territories, and Jews of the diaspora carried with them stories, songs, and expectations. The promise of a Messiah traveled silently between cities, crossing borders without being stopped by armies. Simple men walked miles to hear ancient scrolls being read. They walked away renewed, as if a discreet flame had been rekindled deep in their soul. The roads paved by the Romans, built for control and war, unknowingly prepared the way for something greater. Every stone laid, every road opened, every market raised. Everything was converging towards a purpose that no emperor could foresee. A traveler, looking at the impressive buildings, remarked,
"It's strange. It seems like the whole world is being organized for something."
Your partner replied,
"Maybe it's just a coincidence."
But in the invisible heights there were no coincidences. There was movement, there was preparation. Thus, while empires rose and believed they governed destiny, greater forces worked in silence. The world was restless, heavy, laden with ambition and despair. And without realizing it, he was slowly walking toward the moment that would change everything. The dominance of the empires seemed absolute, but God's domain was about to reveal its true reach. The desert seemed endless, a kingdom of silence where the wind whistled between ancient rocks as if carrying forgotten secrets. It was there, among dunes burned by the sun and the Jordan, winding like a trail of life, that Mavod appeared after centuries of prophetic silence. Joam, the son of Zacharias, walked with steady steps, his simple cloak swaying in the warm wind. His gaze was intense, as if he could see far beyond the barren landscape in front of him. He knew he had been called for something greater than his own life, something that would change the course of history. Crowds began to seek him out. Men, women, soldiers, tax collectors, and Pharisees came from all regions, drawn by something they couldn't explain. When Joam spoke, his voice seemed to cut through the air.
"Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is near."
Those words echoed like thunder over the soul of each listener. Many trembled, others cried, others fell to their knees without being able to explain why. It was as if the desert, silent for so long, was finally hearing the sky speak again. Roman soldiers approached one morning, their helmets shining in the sun. One of them asked,
"And what should we do?"
"Do not oppress anyone or take what is not yours. Be satisfied with what you get."
The men fell silent, surprised. No one spoke like that to soldiers, but John feared no human power. His fear was before the one who was to come. Pharisees also came suspiciously. They watched every gesture, tested his teachings, criticized his rustic appearance. One of them, with an arrogant voice, declared,
"If you are a prophet, tell us, who gave you the authority to speak like that?"
I am just a voice, but the one who comes after me, he indeed has authority.
The Pharisee stepped back, unsettled by the prophet's eyes. There was something special about the Jordan River. When John immersed people in the waters, they emerged with a relief they had never felt before. It was as if the weight of years disappeared. A young man, panting after the baptism, whispered,
I feel like I could start over.
Joan just put his hand on her shoulder.
Prepare your heart. The Messiah is near.
Meanwhile, rumors were spreading across all the villages. In markets, taverns, and synagogues, the name of John became a constant whisper. But John, alone in his silent nights, knew he was not the center of anything. He was just the herald, the flame that announced the dawn. One afternoon, when the sun painted the desert in golden hues, John stopped at the banks of the Jordan and looked out at the horizon. His heart suddenly raced. Something or someone was coming. He felt the wind shift, as if the very air was pierced by a presence not of this earth.
It is nearby.
His disciples listened to him and looked at each other.
What is near, Master?
The one we have been waiting for since our parents. The one the prophets spoke of.
The desert, once dry and silent, now seemed like a stage set up. All the voices, all the steps, all the tears shed on the banks of the Jordan pointed to a single moment. Joan knew that his mission was reaching its peak. He didn't know when, but he felt that very soon his eyes would see the one for whom the entire world was being prepared. People kept coming, some from villages so distant that their feet bled along the way. They came because they felt there was truth in the words of that man dressed in camel skin, something that no temple or school had offered. A woman with a face marked by suffering approached with her child in her arms.
Prophet, is there hope for us?
There is hope for everyone who seeks the light.
That night, as the sky slowly darkened, the murmuring of the people gathered by the riverbank sounded like a collective prayer. Strong men cried without shame, and the elderly recalled forgotten promises. And young people looked to the future with renewed courage. The wind blew once again, lifting the desert dust in spirals. Joan lifted his face, closed his eyes, and listened. It wasn't just the wind. It felt as if time itself was changing direction. And when he opened his eyes, something inside him confirmed what he had been sensing. The Messiah was no longer just a distant promise. The world was on the brink of a divine encounter that would change everything forever. The ancient prophecies were like stars on a moonless night, distant points of hope in a sky covered by doubt. In each synagogue, families gathered to hear passages that had supported generations. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Daniel, Micah, and many others had spoken of a liberator, a king, a servant, a son of man. But none of them had revealed when he would come. Thus, the people lived between despair and expectation, between the pain of the present and the promise of the future. In Jerusalem, scholars were unrolling scrolls with trembling hands, discussing each detail. The conversations went on late into the night, illuminated by lanterns that danced on the stone walls. The truth always seemed close, but still out of reach. In the markets, people spoke with caution.
Has it been born yet?
Asked a woman while weighing grains.
Or is it yet to come?
Replied the seller, looking away to avoid dangerous conversations. Many were expecting a leader who would free Israel from the Roman yoke. Others longed for a spiritual healing, something that could touch the heart of a nation that had lost the habit of hearing the voice of heaven. Rumors traveled quickly. They spoke of a messenger in the desert, a prophet baptizing crowds in the Jordan River. Some said he was the Messiah, but the more cautious denied it.
João points to another person.
And so, the people lived divided between the memory of the past and the foreboding of the future. The night seemed ordinary, but the sky silently bent over the earth, as if holding its breath before an event that would change everything. In the small villages of Judea, men and women followed their routines without imagining that history was about to be divided between before and after. The world seemed to follow its normal course, but there was a gentle tension in the air, as if creation itself awaited something it could not yet name. Maria, a young woman with a pure heart, walked around the house organizing small olive oil containers. Her gaze reflected calmness, yet it also carried a restlessness she couldn't explain. Outside, Jose was adjusting wooden tools, watching the stars slowly appear in the sky. From time to time, he glanced inside like someone trying to take care of more than what his eyes can reach. Even though they did not know, their lives were about to be caught up in the biggest mystery the world has ever experienced. In other regions, elders studied ancient prophecies. In Bethlehem, travelers were preparing to comply with decrees that would take them to their places of origin, not realizing that each step they took served a much greater purpose than imperial orders. They walked among the dust, lantern light and low conversations without imagining that a millennia-old promise was beginning to take human form. Meanwhile, on the hills, shepherds were watching their flocks. They did not know it, but they were destined to witness something that no king would see. One of them remarked,
"The sky is kind of strange today."
Another replied,
"It's just the wind."
But deep down, they felt something profound, a silent call, an expectation that couldn't be put into human words. The whole world seemed to be caught between breaths. The empire moved, the peoples moved, the heavens moved. And at the center of it all, there was a plan that surpassed human understanding. The coming of the Messiah would not be accompanied by armies nor announced by the trumpets of men. It would be silent, humble, discreet, divine. A meeting between eternity and humanity that would transform not just one generation, but all those that would come after. Zacharias, already elderly, walked slowly to the window of his house and looked at the sky. He remembered the words the angel had told him years before, and a deep emotion filled his chest. Isabel approached and touched his hand.
Is it arriving?
Yes, our boy already announced it. Now their boy will come.
In Nazareth, Mary sat at the wooden table and closed her eyes. A gentle light seemed to surround her, even without any lamps lit. She put her hand over her chest and whispered,
"Your will be done."
In the unseen, something was happening. Angels moved like silent lightning, traversing the sky with purpose. The kingdom of God was preparing to touch the earth in an irreversible way. Each star seemed to twinkle more intensely, as if announcing what was still hidden from human eyes. In Bethlehem, the simple streets started receiving travelers from all regions. Entire families sought shelter wherever they could, filling houses, yards, and inns. The hustle and bustle seemed ordinary, but every movement, every step, every arrival was being guided to the same point. The discreet city was becoming the center of the biggest event in history. The shepherds continued to be attentive. One of them commented,
"I have never felt the air so alive."
The eldest replied,
"It's because it's close, very close."
They didn't know how they knew, but they knew. The silence of the stars seemed laden with announcement. So, while the world slept or walked around unaware, the sky tilted even more, getting ready to open its doors. The birth of the light was about to happen, and nothing could stop the fulfillment of the promise that spanned centuries. The world didn't know, but it was moments away from meeting its Savior. The night advanced silently over Bethlehem, yet the sky seemed to vibrate as if it carried an ancient secret about to be revealed. Mary and Joseph found shelter among the shadows of a simple stable, where the smell of hay and the warmth of the animals contrasted with the cold of the early morning. Outside, the world slept without imagining what was about to happen. Then, at the perfect moment, the promise was fulfilled. A gentle light filled the place, growing like a dawn within the night itself. Maria sighed, Jose came closer, and the silence was broken by a fragile, pure, eternal cry. The Son had arrived. In that small stable, in a city forgotten by empires, was born the one who would change everything. Heaven bent to earth. Eternity touched time. Jesus was born.